Hey, imagine that you're at work and your boss comes up to you and leans in and quietly asks you to fudge the numbers on the report that you've been working on for the next meeting. And to be clear, what he's asking you isn't necessarily illegal or anything like that. It's just misleading. It's making it sound different than reality. Make sense? And when he detects a bit of hesitancy from you because you're uncomfortable with this, he then leans in and he's like, come on, man, like everybody does stuff like this. And don't forget, your career's on the line here. You need this job. Your family needs this income. It's really not a big deal. And so with your employer hovering over your cubicle, you feel the pressure mounting and you feel like you got only like 15 seconds to decide what are you going to do. And here's what nobody usually tells you about moments like that. See, that very moment when it feels like you got a split-second ethical decision to make, the truth is you actually already made the decision months before. And in this video, I want to show you exactly how the most successful people that I know make those very kinds of impossible choices like feel effortless in the moment, while most everybody else starts drowning in moral compromise in those moments. But hey, real quick, before I do that, before I dive into it, let me say also that I'm super thankful for all of you who have subscribed to my channel to make sure that you get more content like this about how to make your work matter beyond the weekly paycheck. But listen, if you haven't yet, if you haven't subscribed, I just want to ask you if you'd be willing to do that right now. Hit that subscribe button. It's a small thing for you to do, but it's actually a big thing for me. And so would you do that right now so that I can keep sharing work as worship truth with more and more people that I truly believe will change how others see their everyday work lives, literally for the rest of your lives, okay? All right, let me tell you about a lady named Jennifer. She's a tax director, and she works in a pretty dark world where it's evidently super normal for people to play games with the truth. And several years ago, I heard Jennifer share her testimony. She found a multi-million-dollar accounting error in her company's records. And so she brought that into her boss, and when he heard about it, he actually wanted to bury it in last year's books to make this year's numbers look better than they actually were. And like so many, Jennifer caved and she did what he asked. But later she went on to say that the guilt she experienced from that decision literally started to destroy her. And so when the exact same scenario actually happened again at her next job, carrying that same kind of pressure, same stakes, same millions on the line, this time though, her answer was different and it came instantly. She's like, if you insist on that, I will not sign off on it. No hesitation this time at all. And her supervisor, not used to going head to head with somebody with integrity, he was shocked. So what changed? You know, how did it seem like an impossible decision the first time, but it became a pretty simple one and pretty straightforward the second time? Well, see, most of us think that workplace ethics are really just about weighing your options in moments like that, calculating the risk and measuring the consequences. But I'm actually here to tell you that that's not the case at all. The people who consistently make the right call, do the right thing, they've actually figured out something that changes the whole game. And here's the secret I want to share with you. It's that your life is only as complicated as the number of masters that you're serving. That's the first takeaway I want to leave with you today. The simplicity of serving only one master. See, when Jennifer caved that first time, she was actually serving multiple masters. She was serving her boss's approval. She was also serving her company's profits. She was serving her own career identity and security. She was there to just be somebody who kind of got along and didn't rock the boat. And as a result, every decision came down to like a negotiation of competing loyalties. And that's exhausting, friend, and it's paralyzing. But after that first failure, she ended up making a deeper decision for her future. And I heard Jennifer talk about this. She testified that she had made up her mind from that point forward that she would only serve one master. She had an audience of one to please, and his name was Jesus Christ the Lord. See, that's why when she faced the same pressure, the same kind of situation again, and another boss came and wanted the numbers massaged again, this time there was no internal committee meeting for Jennifer. There was no weighing of the pros and the cons because the decision was already made before she had even had a chance to hear the agenda. It was made long ago about who she was ultimately serving. That's what the Bible's talking about when it says in Proverbs 29:25 that the fear of people is a snare, but whoever trusts in the Lord is safe. See, it's not that Jennifer was fearless in and of herself. It's that she did fear the right person. Okay? Now I know that might sound simple, maybe too simple for real life scenarios, but I've actually watched it work out repeatedly in my life and in others. When you're living for an audience of one, not trying to constantly juggle God and your career and approval and security, then these kinds of impossible decisions actually become pretty straightforward. They're not always easy, but they are straightforward. See, Jennifer's supervisor expected a negotiation from her, that second supervisor. But instead, he got a clear no. Why is that? Because Jennifer had already answered a bigger question. And that question is, who am I ultimately working for? Every day, every moment of every day. But see, I also want to ask an even deeper question than that I think is hovering in the background of this discussion. And it would be this: why do we compromise anyway? Why do we feel the need to fudge the numbers and maybe cut corners or stay silent when we should speak out? Here's why. Every ethical failure ultimately traces back to worship. In other words, it's idolatry. You're like, seriously? Yeah, hear me out. See, these kinds of moments of compromise, they're actually saying something else matters more to us than the glory of God. That's the second takeaway I want you to understand, that idolatry is the root issue. The old church father, St. Augustine, he nailed it 1,500 years ago when he said that the sins of integrity and lying and cheating and cutting corners, that they're actually just smoke. And if you're going to deal with them, you have to get past the smoke and you have to find the fire. You have to trace it back and find the altars where the smoke is rising from. The places in your heart where you're bowing down to something or someone other than God Himself. And for most of us, that altar is going to be summed up in some version of profit or praise or position. In other words, you want the promotion so badly that you'll compromise. What is that? It's idolatry. Or you need your boss's approval so desperately that you'll violate your conscience. Again, that's idolatry. Or you're so focused on the bottom line that you'll bend the rules. Still idolatry, okay? So see, here's the brutal truth. Whatever you worship will end up owning you. It'll make you do things you swore you'd never do. That's what Jennifer's experience teaches us. And she had to come to that point where she could admit that she valued job security more than her own integrity. And it was that misplaced priority that ended up making her a liar. But when you worship God alone, and you're seeking His glory as your primary concern, then all those difficult decisions end up flipping on a dime. They may still be hard and they might still cost you, but it's not a complicated thing anymore. And the really great thing is that when you choose integrity over convenience, you get to put God on display in the workplace. That's the third thing I want you to learn today, that integrity is your witness, okay? In other words, when somebody risks their job to do the right thing, people take notice of that. That's not normal. They start to ask, like, what kind of God would somebody be serving that they'd be willing to throw away their career for Him? To be honest, right? That's what happened with Jennifer. Her boss was shocked that she stood her ground in that moment. And guess what happened? In Jennifer's story, she actually didn't get fired. In fact, she gained the respect of her boss, because from that day forward, the leadership of that company knew very well, this is somebody that we can trust to tell the truth. And beyond even the surface level benefits of that, what was really going on there? The glory of God was shining through Jennifer's faithfulness. It reminds me of Eric Liddell, that Olympic runner who was featured in the old movie Chariots of Fire. You might remember I've talked about him before in other videos, but he was once asked to compete in a race, an Olympic race, on a Sunday, which for him violated his personal convictions. And everybody around him expected him to compromise because, it's the Olympics, for goodness sake. Like, who would pass up that opportunity to run in a race like that? But Eric said no. In fact, here's a quote from his own mouth, quote, "I can't break God's laws even for an Olympic medal." And in his case, here's what happened. Through a series of strange circumstances, he ended up running a different race on a different day because he said no to the Olympics, and he won gold in that race, and his story as a result became legendary. Not because he won, but because he was willing to lose for something greater. And in the end, God received more glory through Eric's willingness to be disqualified for the Olympics than through a simple victory he could have secured. See, you never know what God will do when you choose his way over compromise. He might bless you beyond all possible imagination, or he might let you lose everything like Eric and use that loss to shake people up and wake them up. But either way, you win. And when you win, it's a win for God because you're playing a bigger game than simply chasing profit and praise and position in this earthbound life. All right, now let me be clear about something. That there's nothing wrong with profit or praise or position in this earthbound life, okay? In fact, in just a minute, I want to explain how God has actually designed the world for us to pursue those very things in their rightful place. So making money and growing a business and experiencing some degree of material success in this world, that's not evil. And I'll explain that in a lot more detail in a moment, so hang on for that. But first, I also want to take this opportunity to say to all of you who are working in an environment where your boss isn't a Christian, and maybe just like Jennifer, you're working in an industry even that can often be cutthroat and put a lot of pressure on your integrity. The question is, how are you going to stay focused and live out your faith every day for the glory of God 9 to 5 when you're at work? Well, I'm happy to say that that's exactly why I have created a free 30-day Work as Worship devotional guide designed to help you see your current job through God's eyes. To help you pursue excellence at work as an act of worship to him, to help you maintain your integrity even when nobody's looking, and ultimately to find purpose in the difficult seasons. It's a completely free devotional, no strings attached. I'm not trying to get anything from you, and I want to send it to you. So just comment, "I want the devotional" down below, and I'll send that to you right away. All right, before we close, I've got just 2 more takeaways I want to share with you today. First of all, I want you to understand how to keep profit in proper perspective, okay? Because again, as I said earlier, there's nothing wrong with making profit, okay? Now, we certainly don't want to fall prey to what is known as the prosperity gospel. I don't know if you've heard of that before, but it's the idea that if you honor God with your life, if you really sell out for him, you're guaranteed to be wealthy. But we also don't want to believe in the poverty gospel, which is the other side of the same coin. It's the idea that if you live for God with your whole heart, then you should have to be okay with being poor, and that the godliest people in the world are the most impoverished people. I would say to you, both of those are theological errors. Because here's the reality. God has actually designed the world for profit. And he makes it super clear in the Bible that making money is not an evil thing. Growing a business, that's not an unspiritual task. In fact, his plan is to use your ability to make money and to start businesses in order to create jobs and provide for families, including your own, and ultimately to contribute to all of human flourishing. But the point is this: yes, make as much money as you can, but then use it in the way that God intends. The problem isn't profit, it's when profit becomes your God, you see? It's not wrong to have money, it's when money has you that it becomes wrong. When it goes from one priority among many to your only priority that you're chasing. Dorothy Sayers said it perfectly, quote, "When work becomes an idol, everything is flipped upside down." See, here's how it's supposed to work. It's supposed to be the case that you and I are showing up for our jobs every single day, planning to glorify God in all that we do and serve people really, really well. And 90% of the time when that's going on, when that's what's motivating us, profit is the natural byproduct, because that's the correct order. God first, people second, profit following as in third place. But somewhere along the way, we tend to reverse it, and profit becomes the first goal, the first thing we're chasing. And if people happen to benefit, well, that's a nice side gig or side bonus, but it's not totally necessary for us. See, that's the idol talking. And Scripture wants us to flip that back to God's original design and put His glory and serving others first, and then just watch what happens. And most of the time, what will happen is that profit will still come, but now it will create a completely different atmosphere. You'll be the boss who treats your employees differently than others. You'll be the employee making different decisions about how to spend the company's money. Everything will literally change when profit is in its proper place, as important, but not ultimate. And the same thing is true with praise and position. Profit, praise, and position. And here's the last thing I want to leave with you, because in this season of life, I'm a pastor. I think most of you know that, which means I work for a church. So you might be listening to this and be tempted to hear everything I've shared today and conclude something like, well, it's easy for you to say, John. I mean, you work for a Christian business. Like, what do you know about working out here in the real world? Well, first of all, if you've listened to much of anything I've shared with you before, you know that I haven't always worked for a church. I've actually had plenty of experience working in a whole lot of different roles for a lot of different companies, some of which employed me, and some of which I actually started and scaled and operated myself. But even more than that, here's what you really need to know. There's no such thing as Christian business, okay? Businesses don't go to heaven, right? People do. So it really makes no sense to talk about whether or not a business is Christian or not. What we actually need to determine is this, that you and I, will be, last point, Christians in business, okay? Regardless of what that business is. And here's why. Because business is actually part of what God created for everyone. Christians and non-Christians alike. That's why there are tons of non-believers out there who run really excellent businesses and benefit a whole lot of people in the world. Because even though they don't recognize God as their creator and as their Lord, they are still, in fact, made in God's image, aren't they? And so this isn't just about Christians being the only ethical people in the business world. That'd be a super arrogant conclusion for us to make today. Not at all. This is about Christians being those people who actually understand the larger purposes of God in and through the workplace. We are the ones who are supposed to bring divine wisdom and eternal perspective into our jobs. We are the ones who should be maximizing our full potential, not just to make good products, but literally to enrich people's lives and serve God's greater purposes. Do you understand? You're not just building a career, friend. You're not just making money. You are participating in God's work of redemption in the world, which means that your cubicle is, in fact, a sacred space. Your spreadsheet is a spiritual document. Your work is an act of worship literally to the Lord. That's the shift I'm praying you can make in your mind today. See, we live in a world that worships profit and will pursue it at any cost. That's actually why your integrity will absolutely get tested at work, if it hasn't already. Every single one of us will face moments where doing the right thing is going to cost us, maybe in a really big way. Maybe it even costs us our job, right? But here's what we need to understand. That moment of decision, when your boss comes and asks you to fudge on the numbers, or when you could cut a corner and truth be told, nobody's probably even going to know about it. They're not going to notice, or maybe everybody else is playing fast and loose with the truth. See, those are moments when the decision of what you're going to do has already been made. The decision was already made earlier. And I'm asking you to make that decision right now. Who is going to be your master at work? Because if you're serving multiple masters, you will be paralyzed every time you face one of those potentially compromising situations. You'll sit there weighing your options and calculating risk, and you'll end up compromising to the point where you probably won't even recognize yourself anymore. A day will come and you'll be like, how did I get over here? How did this happen? But if your master is Jesus Christ, if he's truly your boss, he's your audience of one, your greatest reward, then those impossible decisions actually become quite simple. Again, maybe not easy, but simple. And you never know what God will do through your effort of integrity and faithfulness at work. He might bless you beyond imagination, like Jennifer, or he might use your sacrifice to wake some people up, like he did with Eric Liddell. But either way, you win. Your integrity matters to God. Your choices matter. Your work matters. So stop making every decision a negotiation and start making them moments of worship. Choose your master right now before the pressure hits, so that when that moment comes, and I promise you it will, you'll be prepared to know exactly what to do. And one more time, hey, don't forget to grab your free Work is Worship devotional guide by commenting below, and also subscribe to my channel. That would be a big blessing to me, so that you can get more content like this on how to make your work matter for all of eternity. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Now let's go get back to work.